What's going on, guys? Welcome into episode number 23 of the Ask Tony Show. Big shout out to MJ, not to LeBron, to MJ, number 23. Thank you so much for being here. We got some great questions today. I know I say that every week, but I got some great questions for you guys today. So let's jump right into it.
What's the difference between an appraisal and an inspection?
So inspections and appraisals, a lot of people get confused between the two, but they're not the same. In a nutshell, an inspection is optional. An appraisal typically is not. There are circumstances where you can get an appraisal waiver, but that's a different topic for a different day. So in most cases, the inspection is optional. The appraisal is going to be required by the bank. So an inspection is completely for you as the buyer. There's two ways that you can do an inspection. You can do it yourself. You can take a buddy, a family member. You can basically do it yourself and go check out whatever you want to check out in the home. That's number one. Number two, you can hire a professional inspector. But if you hire a professional inspector, it's usually going to cost you between $300 and $500, depending. That is an additional expense. It's not part of your earnest money. It's not part of your down payment. It's not part of anything. It is completely separate from any other funds that you're going to have to use to purchase your property. But you do have the option to do it. The appraisal comes from the bank. So the objective of the appraisal is twofold. Number one, to inspect the property. They want to make sure that it's in good shape. And the appraiser does have the ability to require repairs that he considers need to be made for the bank to feel comfortable. And number two, to give the property a value. The bank wants to make sure that the home is worth at least what you're paying for it. So like I said, in most cases, the appraisal is going to be mandatory. There are appraisal waivers. Shoot me a DM if you want to know what that is and how to get one. The inspection is completely optional. Some people do it, some people don't. I recommend you do one with a professional inspector, but it's completely up to you.
What is a good company to build a home with?
Building a home is very complex, and I've had a lot of different experiences with people building a property. And what I can tell you is I've had bad experiences and I've had good experiences. But the good experiences are usually with big builders that have a lot of properties, that have a lot of big subdivisions, a lot of land. Builders like Ivory Homes, Salisbury, D.R. Horton, even Edge Homes to a certain extent. Big builders. Now, they're usually a little bit more expensive, but actually not that much. But for example, Ivory is going to be more expensive, but they're one of the premier builders, at least here in Utah. So my recommendation is to find a big builder, a builder with a big brand. I have had situations where we use a small builder. And when I say a small builder, I mean there are people out there that are construction people or they have a construction company and they kind of pick up projects. So for example, we had one in West Valley and we had one in Spanish Fork that immediately come to mind of people that buy one lot or two lots and then they build the home and they sell it. And then that's kind of what they do. They just go one or two at a time. They're not big builders. But what I have found is that the quality of the small builders is substantially worse. Their prices may be a little bit lower, so that may or may not. But I mean, for me, it's not worth it because the house is going to have issues. Every single time I have sold a house from a small builder, the house has issues later. On the flip side, when I've used Ivory or Salisbury or D.R. Horton, very rarely do people have issues with their homes. And when they do, the builder takes care of it. So my recommendation, use a big builder. It might be a little bit more expensive, but the warranties are better. The quality is better. Stay away from small builders. They're small for a reason.
How can I get rid of my mortgage insurance?
Mortgage insurance sucks. It's very expensive, and typically the rule is that if you give less than 20% down on your property, the government forces you to have mortgage insurance. And that can be, I've seen mortgage insurances from $200 to $450, depending on your criteria, on your profile, depending on your FICO score, depending on a lot of things. the mortgage insurance premium, the MIP, can go up or down. Now, for specific stuff on all this loan stuff, because people send me DMs, all you loan officers, I see you, relax. Contact your loan officer, contact your mortgage broker, whatever, because then these guys get mad at me and they're idiots. But anyway, so if you have an FHA loan, you have to refinance into a conventional. If you stay with an FHA loan and you just gave the minimum 3.5%, the mortgage insurance is never going to go away, ever. So the only way to do it is once you reach that 20% equity threshold, whether from appreciation or payments or both, you got to refinance into a conventional to get rid of the mortgage insurance. If you have a conventional loan, then as soon as you hit 20%, the bank does an appraisal, and if you indeed have 20% equity, that mortgage insurance automatically is out the door. So that's how you get rid of it. It sucks. I know it didn't used to exist, but now you got to have it. So you either buy with 20% down. For example, investment properties have this. Investment properties don't have mortgage insurance because you need 20% down in order to qualify. But for average people, single family, your personal property, that's how you get rid of it. So try to get rid of it ASAP.
I'm a brand new agent. How can I get my first client?
Next question is, I am a brand new agent. How can I get my first client? My opinion on this is going to make a lot of agents upset, but let me explain. If you're a very brand new agent, you've never done anything, and you want to get a client, work for free. Work for free. Like, I'll tell you guys a quick little story. I think it was my second listing, I paid to represent the seller in that transaction. They didn't pay me a commission, and on top of that, I had to buy my super key box because I didn't have one, and they're like $200. I had to pay for the sign, and obviously there was no commission that I was gonna get paid, so that came out of my pocket. Probably say I spent $300 on that listing. So I paid to represent the seller. Now, for a lot of agents, this is blasphemy. Like, this should never be done. I am the devil. I am what is wrong with this industry, with this advice that I'm giving you. But hear me out. So with that transaction, I paid to represent the seller because I knew that it was a great house in a great area. I knew that it was going to sell super well. It was a beautiful home. And eventually it sold, and I used it as marketing. And down the line, not only did this seller, she's probably given me 4 to 5 referrals to this day, probably more. I mean, she might give me like 1 a year, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot. So I built a good relationship with this family, and now, they've sold another house, they bought another house. Like, it's multiplied into more deals. Aside from referrals, I helped her son buy a property. So it just works. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get started. So what I would do is, I lived with my parents. I had very little I didn't have a lot of expenses. So minimize your expenses, get a day job, whatever it is, and work for free for as long as you can, and build up your experience and build up that portfolio. That's it for this week's video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you or anybody you know is in the market to buy or sell a property, let me know. And if you're a watcher of the show, I'm going to do something cool for you guys. So shoot me those referrals and your questions on DM, text, whatever it may be, and have a great week.